Introduction to Iterators. Imagine you had a grocery list and you wanted to know what each item on the list was. You'd have to scan through each row and check for the item. This common task is similar to what we have to do when we want to iterate over or loop through an array. One tool at our disposal is the for loop. However, we also have access to built-in array methods which make looping easier. The built-in JavaScript array methods that help us iterate are called iteration methods. At times referred to as iterators, iterators are methods called on arrays to manipulate elements and return values. In this lesson, you will learn the syntax for these methods, their return values, how to use the documentation to understand them, and how to choose the right iterator method for a given task. Instructions. Inspect the code in main.js. Notice the different methods being called on the arrays: forEach, map, and filter. Run the code to see the output. We have a forEach, map, and filter. Let's run them. And we can see that forEach is going to take in an artist, so that'll be the element. And then we can console.log the element with the string attached to it, and that's what happens. So for each, artist in the artists array, console.log artist plus the name. Let's look at const numbers as an array again. Const squared numbers equals numbers.map. And map is a function that's going to take in number, and number is going to be part of a function here and return number times number. So whichever number gets passed in is going to get squared and returned. And that looks to be what happened here, as the square root of 1 is 1, of 2 is 4, of 3 is 9, of 4 is 16, and of 5 is 25. Let's look at this one. This is const thing, and it is yet another array, and this is a mixed array with numbers. It has strings. Const only numbers, things.filter. Thing, and that's the element, the first element in the array, and it'll be the second, third, fourth, fifth. It'll be every element in the array, this thing right here. Return type of thing triple equal to number. So what it's saying is filter through the things array right here and check if it's type of number. So if the thing is equal to number, type of number, and return only the numbers. And you'll see only numbers are returned here, 5, 3.14, and 100. Let's move on. The forEach method. The first iteration method that we're going to learn is .forEach. Aptly named, forEach will execute the same code for each element of an array. Let me keep this code in. The code above will log a nicely formatted list of the groceries to the console. Let's explore the syntax of invoking .forEach. Groceries.forEach calls the forEach method on the groceries array. .forEach takes an argument of callback function. Remember, a callback function is a function passed as an argument into another function. forEach loops through the array and executes the callback function for each element. During each execution, the current element is passed as an argument to the callback function. The return value for forEach will always be undefined. Another way to pass a callback for forEach is to use arrow function syntax. Groceries.forEach, grocery item, arrow function, console.log, that grocery item. So that would console.log each grocery item. We can also define a function beforehand to be used as the callback function. Function print groceries takes in an element and console.logs that element. Groceries.forEach is going to take in that function, which is called print groceries. The above example uses a function declaration, but you can also use a function expression or arrow function as well. All three code snippets do the same thing. In each array iteration method, we can use any of the three examples to supply a callback function as an argument to the iterator. It's good to be aware of the different ways to pass in callback functions as arguments in iterators, because developers have different stylistic preferences. Nonetheless, due to the strong adoption of ES6, we will be using arrow function syntax in later exercises. Instructions. Iterate over the fruits array to log I want to eat a plus the name of each fruit to the console. For example, I want to eat a mango. You may use any form of callback function. So we are going to do a forEach, and let's do it like this. That's how they say they're going to do it later in the course. So let's say fruits.forEach, and it'll take in fruit. We'll just call it a single fruit. Now this doesn't matter. This could be anything. This could be EL for element. This could be I. This could be item. It does not matter what you put here. We're just going to call it this now, and we're going to iterate it with this name. Fruit is now each one of the values. So mango is fruit, papaya is fruit, pineapple is fruit, and apple is fruit. So what does it want us to console log here? Iterate over the fruits array and log I want to eat. So we'll do that in console.log. Do your backticks. I want to eat. And then they want the name of the fruit. So $, open curly braces. And we just have to type in fruit because that's what we called it right here. Let's see if that works out for us. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to eat a, and then the fruit. There we go. Let's go on to the next one. The .map method. The second iterator we're going to cover is .map. When .map is called on an array, it takes an argument of a callback function and returns a new array. Take a look at an example of calling .map. Const numbers is an array of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The big numbers equals numbers.map, and then a function that takes number and returns number times 10. .map works in a similar manner to forEach. The major difference is that .map returns a new array. We'll keep this in here. In the example above, numbers is an array of numbers. Big numbers will store the return value of calling .map on numbers. Numbers.map will iterate through each element in the numbers array and pass the element into the callback function. Return number times 10 is the code we wish to execute upon each element in the array. This will save each value from the numbers array multiplied by 10 to a new array. If we take a look at numbers and big numbers, console.log numbers would be an output of an array 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and console.log big numbers would be an output of an array of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Notice that the elements in numbers were not altered, and big numbers is a new array. Instructions. Add your code under the animals array and before the line console.log secret message.join. Use .map to create a new array that contains the first character of each string in the animals array. Save the new array to a const variable named secret message. So this is going to be before secret message. So here we want to use the .map to create a new array of animals. So animals.map. And we'll create a new array. We can call it animal, or you know what, let's call it element, so we can kind of just show what it's doing here. We'll call .map to make a new array that contains the first character of each string in the animals array. Okay, so it'll be element, and then what it should do is return element 0. So element at 0 will be the first letter, and we need to hold this somewhere. So let's hold it in const. Did they give us a name? Yes, it's called secret message. So it's this one right here. So const secret message equals animals.map element and return element at 0. Let's run that. Oh, I see. We can't just do this in one line. We need to close these in. Let's see. Let's see if that works. That does work, and it prints out hello world. Okay, so use .map to divide all the numbers in big numbers by 100. Save the returned values to a variable declared with const called small numbers. So let's do const small numbers, and that is going to equal big numbers dot map. And inside of map, we'll take an element. And remember, we need these curly braces here. So we'll put those curly braces up, and every element will be divided by 100 and return that. That should do it. Let's run that. Great. Let's move on to the next lesson. The filter method. Another useful iterator method is filter. Like map, filter returns a new array. However, filter returns an array of elements after filtering out certain elements from the original array. The callback function for the filter method should return true or false depending on the element that is passed into it. The elements that cause the callback function to return true are added to the new array. Take a look at the following example. Const words is an array with chair, music, pillow, brick, pen, and door. Const short words is equal to words.filter, then word, fat hour function, will return word.length less than 6. Words is an array that contains string elements. Const short words equals declares a new variable that will store the returned array from invoking .filter. The callback function is an arrow function, has a single parameter, word. Each element in the words array will be passed to this function as an argument. Word.length less than 6 is the condition in the callback function. Any word from the words array that has fewer than 6 characters will be added to the short words array. Let's also check the values of words and short words. Console.log words, the output will be chair, music, pillow, brick, pen, and door. Console.log short words, the output will be chair, music, brick, pen, and door, because pillow has too many letters. Observe how words was not mutated, i.e. changed, and short words is a new array. Instructions. Call the .filter method on random numbers to return values that are less than 250. Save them to a new array called small numbers declared with a const. All right, so we have random numbers up here, and we're going to do our filter over here. So we're going to const small numbers. That's going to equal random numbers dot filter. We'll open that up. We will give it an element, which is one of the numbers. We'll open up our brackets here, and inside of here we'll do our code. And it needs to return values that are less than 250. So return elements that are less than 250. Let's see how that works. That works great. Now let's work with an array of strings. Invoke .filter on the favorite words array to return elements that have more than 7 characters. Save the returned array to a const variable named long favorite words. So const long favorite words is going to equal favorite words dot, and we're using filter again. Filter will take an element We'll open a function. And now we need to return elements that have more than 7 characters. So what we can do here is we'll do an if statement. I think that's the best way to do it. If element.length is greater than or equal to 7, we will return element. Otherwise, we'll just do nothing. Let's run that. Did you call filter on favorite words and save the return to, oh, no, I didn't. I called it log. That should be long. Run that. Oh, it doesn't say greater than or equal to. It has to be greater than 7. So just get rid of that equal to. I misread that. Great. We got it right now. So let's read this again since I made a mistake on it. We have a const long favorite words, and it's equal to favorite words.filter. It's going to take each element from long favorite words, and if the element.length is greater than 7, we're going to return that element as a new array into a new array that's being held into long favorite words. That's where the array is being held. So that's what happened there. Let's move on. The findIndex method. We sometimes want to find the location of an element in an array. That's where the findIndex method comes in. Calling findIndex on an array will return the index of the first element that evaluates to true in the callback function. Const jumbled nums equals an array with 123, 25, 78, 5, and 9. Const less than 10 equals jumbled nums.findIndex. Num is passed in, and we have a function that returns num is less than 10. Jumbled nums is an array that contains elements that are numbers. Const less than 10 declares a new variable that stores the returned index number from invoking findIndex. The callback function is an arrow function that has a single parameter, num. Each element in the jumbled nums array will be passed to this function as an argument. Num is less than 10 is a condition that elements are checked against. .findIndex will return the index of the first element which evaluates to true for that condition. Let's take a look at what less than 10 evaluates to. Console.log less than 10. The output is 3. Let's take a look and just make sure that's right. Less than 10. Yeah, the number is 5 here, and its index would be 0, 1, 2, 3. If we check what element has index of 3, console.log jumbled nums at index 3, the output would be 5. Great, the element in index 3 is the number 5. This makes sense since 5 is the first element that is less than 10. If there isn't a single element in the array that satisfies the condition in the callback, then .findIndex will return -1. Const greater than 1,000 jumbled nums.findIndex with the num, and it's going to return numbers that are greater than 1,000. The output of that will be -1 because there are no numbers greater than 1,000. Invoke.findIndex on the animals array to find the index of the element that has the value elephant, and save the returned value to a const variable named foundAnimal. So let's make a const foundAnimal. And what are we doing? We're invoking findIndex on animals. So animals.findIndex, and we'll invoke it. And we have to find elephant. So we want to find index, and we want to take all the animals. We'll take all the animals. We'll have our function here. And now we just want to return the elephant. So we want to say return element == elephant. That does sound weird there, doesn't it? All right, let's run that, see if it works. And it did work. Great. Now, number 2, Let's see if we can find the index of the first animal that starts with the letter S. Call findIndex on the animals array, return the index of the first element that starts with the letter S. Assign the return value to a const variable named starts with S. So we'll make a const right down here, and we'll call it starts with S, and that will equal animals dot find index. It will take in an element, and we have our function right here. We'll say if el, and we'll say 0, because that'll be, now this is a little confusing. So if element at 0, we're talking about a string now. At 0 is going to be the first letter. So that's what we're saying. If element at 0 is triple equal to, and the letter was S, we're going to return the element. And otherwise we'll get a -1. Let's try that out. Perfect. Let's move on. The reduce method. Another widely used iteration method is reduce. The reduce method returns a single value after iterating through the elements of an array, thereby reducing the array. Take a look at the example below. Const numbers equals an array of 1, 2, 4, and 10. Const summed numbers equals numbers.reduce with an accumulator, comma, current value. Arrow function is going to return accumulator plus current value. And when it console.logs summed numbers, the output is 17, and that is the sum of 10, 4, 2, and 1. Here are the values of accumulator and current value as we iterate through the numbers array. Iteration first, accumulator 1, current value 2, return value 3. Iteration second, accumulator 3, current value 4, return value 7. Iteration third, accumulator 7, current value 10, return value 17. Now, let's go over the use of reduce from the example above. Numbers is an array that contains numbers. Summed numbers is a variable that stores the returned value of invoking .reduce on numbers. Numbers.reduce calls the reduce method on the numbers array and takes a callback function as argument. Should be as an argument. The callback function has two parameters, accumulator and current value. The value of accumulator starts off as the value of the first element in the array, and the current value starts as the second element. To see the value of accumulator and current value change, review the chart above. As reduce iterates through the array, the return value of the callback function becomes the accumulator value for the next iteration. Current value takes on the value of the current element in the looping process. The .reduce method can also take an optional second parameter to set an initial value for accumulator. Remember, the first argument is the callback function. For instance, const numbers is an array of 1, 2, 4, and 10. Const summed numbers is equal to numbers.reduce. It passes in accumulator and current value. We fed our function to return accumulator plus current value, and after the function closes, we have a comma for a second argument. The second argument is 100. So that's where the accumulator is supposed to start. So we will console.log summed numbers, and the output would be 117 in this case. Here's an updated chart that accounts for the second argument of 100. Iteration first, accumulator 100, current value 1, return value 101. Iteration second, accumulator 101, current value 2, return value 103. Iteration third, accumulator 103, current value 4, return value 107. Iteration fourth, accumulator 107, current value 10, return value 117. Instructions. Let's practice calling .reduce and using console.log to check the values as .reduce iterates through the array. In main.js, there is an array of numbers, new numbers. To start, declare a new variable named newSum using the const keyword. Let's do that right away. Const newSum using the const keyword. Assign to newSum the value of calling .reduce on numbers equals .reduce. So we need, does it say numbers or new numbers? New numbers. .reduce as a function. You don't need to provide any arguments to .reduce yet. You'll also see a type error, undefined is not a function, but we will fix that after we add our callback function in the next step. So that's all they wanted us to do, it seems like. Let's run it. And yes, that's what they wanted. Provide .reduce with an argument of a callback function. The callback function has two parameters. The first parameter is current value. Use either a function expression or an arrow function. All right, so in here, we will do an anonymous arrow function. So here is where we will put our, what do they call them? Argument parameters. We'll put our parameters right up here. Accumulator, current value. And that's all they asked to do, so let's run that. To check the value being used as we iterate through the array, add 3 statements to the function body of the callback. Console.log, a string, the value of accumulator, and then comma to accumulator. So let's do that. I'm going to copy these. And we have another console.log here, and this is going to be the current value. Let's take a look there. And a return statement that adds accumulator to current value. So return let's just paste it there. Accumulator plus current value. Let's run that. And we see what we're getting. We have our accumulator current value, accumulator current value. And the current value always adds to the accumulator, and that's how this is summed. Log the value of new sum to the console to see the return value of calling .reduce on new numbers. Console.log new sum, and we'll run that. 16 is the answer. While we have this code set up, let's also check what happens if you add a second argument to reduce. The second argument acts as an initial value for the accumulator. Add a second argument of 10 to reduce. So in reduce, at the end of it, seems to be right here. Yes, so at the end of reduce, we want to comma here and add in 10. I think that's the right spot to run it. And that worked perfectly. And now you could see the answer is 26 because we started on the number 10 and we added all of these, which sum to 16, which means the answer altogether would be 26. Let's go to the next one. Iterator Documentation. There are many additional built-in array methods, a complete list of which is on the MDN Array Iteration Methods page. The documentation for each method contains several sections. 1. A short definition. 2. A block with the correct syntax for using the method. 3. A list of parameters the method accepts or requires. 4. The return value of the function. 5. An extended description. 6. Examples of the method's use. 7. Other additional information. In the instructions below, there are some errors in the code. Use the documentation for a given method to determine the error or fill in a blank to make the code run correctly. Instructions. In the code editor, there is an array called words. we want to create a new array of interesting words. The first thing we want to do is check if there are words that are fewer than 6 characters long. There is something missing in the words.sum method call. Fix this method so that true is printed to the console. For more information, browse MDM's documentation on .sum. Let's take a look at what it looks like first so we know what we're working with. We have console.log words.sum. It's taking in nothing here, and it's making this variable up out of nowhere. I'm just guessing we have to put word in here, and we could check the documentation as well just so we can learn more, but this seems to be the issue. Let's take a look. Okay, and that's it. We had to have word here in order for word to be here. This is word referring to each element of the array. So without that, this is actually undefined, and undefined.length is impossible. Number 2, the sum method returned true, which means there are some words in the array that are shorter than 6 characters. Use the .filter method to save any words longer than 5 characters to a new variable called interesting words declared with the const. Let's do that first. Const interesting words. We've used filter in previous exercise, but for more information, browse MDN's documentation on .filter. So what we want to do here now is use the .filter method to save any words longer than 5 characters to a new variable. So now we want to say words.filter, and in there we'll take an element, we'll make our fat arrow function, and we want to return, let's do an if and then the return, if element.length is greater than 5 characters, and return element. Let's try that out. And that worked. 3. In the last line of main.js, there is this code, console.log, and it takes in interesting words.every word, and then the function does not finish. Complete the code between the parentheses to check if every element has more than 5 characters. Make sure to uncomment the last line of the program before you run the code. For more information, browse MDN's documentation on every. So this is every. I imagine it's not like sum and will only return something like true if every number is greater than 5. Now let's check that documentation and get this right. The every method. Okay. Const is below threshold equals current value less than 40. Okay. Console.log array1.every is below threshold. So we're going to pass in, there's no return here. Okay. There's no return. Let's read a little bit more. Let's see if we have another. Okay, here's an arrow function one. Every x is, okay. So we just have to give it a specification and not return anything from it. It's just going to return true or false. That's the big mistake that was made here. So we'll look at their arrow function. So it'll say every, we'll pass in x, or what did we pass in? I think we passed in word. So we'll pass in word. We'll do our arrow, and if word is greater than the number was 5 or 6. So that's how we should be doing it. So there should be no return, and we don't really need an if statement. Kind of just need this right here. Where are you attached to? Nothing. Okay, let's run that and see what we get. All right, let's check if just putting it on the same line will work. That does work. So our function works this way. Okay, so we learned a little bit about every. And we are now finished with that. Great, let's move on to the next one. Iterators. Choose the right iterator. There are many iteration methods you can choose. In addition to learning the correct syntax for the use of iteration methods, it is also important to learn how to choose the correct method for different scenarios. The exercises below will give you the opportunity to do just that. You'll see errors pop up in the terminal as you work through the exercise, but by the end the errors will be gone. Instructions. Replace the word method in the first method call with a method that will do something to each of the values in the array and return undefined. So we did have a method that did something to each thing in the array, but didn't return a new array. So I think that was forEach. So let's go ahead and head over to cities.method and forEach. Try that out. That worked. In the second method call, replace the word method with a method that will return a new array with only those elements longer than 7 characters. All right, so the new array was the filter. So we'll use the filter method, and the filter will take in each city, and city.length, it'll return city.length that is greater than 7. Okay, great. Let's see if that works. That did work. In the third method call, replace the word method with a method that takes an array that contains multiple values and returns a single value. So in the third method call, that's you right here. And we are going to take an array that contains multiple values and return a single value. We just did that one. That was reduce. Let's run that. Great. In the fourth method call, replace the word method with a method that will return a new array of numbers returned from the function. A new array this time. That was the map method that was returning a new array. Let's see where this is. Map. In the fifth method call, replace the word method with a method that will return a Boolean value. We had two of those. We had sum and every, and we just used every. So let's try sum and run that. And we got it. Let's move on to the next lesson. Review. Awesome job on clearing the iterators lesson. You have learned a number of useful methods in this lesson, as well as how to use the JavaScript documentation from the Mozilla Developer Network to discover and understand additional methods. Let's review. forEach is used to execute the same code on every element in an array, but does not change the array and returns undefined. Map executes the same code on every element in an array and returns a new array with the updated elements. Filter checks every element in an array to see if it meets certain criteria and returns a new array with the elements that return truthy for the criteria. findIndex returns the index of the first element of an array which satisfies a condition in the callback function. It returns -1 if none of the elements in the array satisfies the condition. Reduce iterates through an array and takes the values of the elements and returns a single value. All iterator methods takes a callback function that can be predefined or a function expression or an arrow function. You can visit the Mozilla Developer Network to learn more about iterator methods and all other parts of JavaScript and instructions if you want to challenge yourself, and here are some more things that we can do, but let's move on to the next lesson.